But from the left here we have Trevor Scott he's a local boy, I guess, from Rugby Fit Kitchens. We have Paul Crowe, who's from Ripples, is the MD of Ripples. We've got Malcolm Scott from Swift Electrical. He's also the corporate chair of the KBSA. And he's flown down this morning from Glasgow. His arms must be exhausted. Here's Derek Miller from Scope. What I want to kind of get a grip through under a few topics today, if we can, just to try and get, a cross-section of ideas, because you're all from very different businesses of how you operate. You know, we've had sort of traditional, in the best possible term, kitchen retailer. We've got a sort of franchise operation. We've got a kind of distribution operation. Derek, you're from a retail background, but now you're very heavily into contract work as well, so there's lots of different perspectives on the same issues, I think. But I think it's probably less worth kicking it off. It's a very positive show. Everyone's telling me how fantastic it is. The market's very positive and buoyant. I just want to get your idea from your own perspective of how the market is in March 2016. So we'll start at the end with Trevor.
Okay, well, we're pretty much as busy as we've ever been and getting busier all the time. As a company, in the last 4 years, we've doubled in size from a £1 million company to a £2 million company. We've added a branch and we're adding additional warehousing because we're simply running out of space. So, yeah, things are looking pretty good at the moment.
So what are you attributing that to? Is it just the market is returning, is coming back, or is your own sort of canny operation within the sector that's available?
Well, I'd love to say it's all down to my amazing business acumen. I think perhaps there is an element of that, but mostly it's down to being in the right place at the right time, making a few canny decisions and getting in ahead of the curve a little bit. We made our big move in 2011 before the recession ended, and we put ourselves into quite an advanced position in comparison to quite a lot of retailers, and I think we just took advantage a lot sooner than many others, and we haven't looked back since.
I mean, Paul, you've got Ripples franchisees all around the country.
Yeah.
What's your interpretation of the market and is it consistent across the country?
It's good. It's not consistent across the country. Overall, I mean, it's very positive, and we're very cautious not to get too carried away. Always, we don't want to kid ourselves that suddenly everything's okay. But we've been working very, very hard to just be consistent in what we're doing and just focus not on everybody else, but on the customer that's in front of us. And it's so far so good, and it's long may it continue, really.
Malcolm, what about you? You obviously come from the other side of the fence, so to speak, from sort of supply. Are you seeing that positivity coming through from the people that you're delivering to?
Yeah, definitely. I think the market's driven by house builders. House builders are building more houses, which means more people are moving house, which means more kitchens are being put in, and the market has picked up right across the board.
And you're seeing that from your supplier partners as well, are you?
Yes, and right across the whole country. More in the south still, but everywhere.
And Derek, what about you? You've got a retail foot and a contract foot. Where's the growth coming from for you?
Yeah, we've seen staggering growth in the contracts arena. We put 40% onto our business last year, and for our first 6 months of our financial year this year, we are 50% ahead of last. So, and that's all attributable to a growth in residential contracts.
Right. So how are you getting that business then? Is it just that the business is available is 50% more, or how are you targeting it to get that business?
The business is available. There's a lot more houses being built, but we have to remember we came from a fairly low point. 2008 to 12 was a disaster, and Scotland was a bit, again, we took the full brunt of the recession, so we're getting a lot of catching up in the market, but we were also we did well through the recession to stay alive, and we were told at the time that if we were still in the game with a decent balance sheet and decent cash flow, we would do fine, and that's the way it's worked out.
Yeah. So the positivity, it seems to be very tangible and with a certain amount of caution. Now, I went back and read some of the things that you guys have written in the last sort of 6 months or so, and I was trying to think if there are themes that are consistent through them. And one of the themes that is consistent all the way through them is the relationship between retailers and suppliers. That is a thing that comes up again and again and again. Can we kind of pin down what the issue between it is? Is it because it has always been that way and it's just one of those things, or is it because it's changing as the market pressures have come up? The suppliers want more out of their retailers and want more control over what they do. Trevor, what do you think? What's the phenomena here?
Well, I think there's suppliers and there's suppliers. When you start talking about furniture, which at the end of the day as a kitchen specialist is where the bulk of the product that we sell and the bulk of the value and the bulk of the margin sits, we have no problem with any of our suppliers. They all work very well with us as retailers, and we build good, comfortable, happy working relationships with them. With appliance brands and accessory sinks and taps and such like, all of them, without a doubt, across the board, come the recession, dived in with both feet and went for moving boxes via the internet, and basically let us adrift as retailers. And post-recession have mostly been backpedaling, trying to build bridges and mend relationships, and some have succeeded better than others.
So why have some been successful more than others then?
Well, I think some brands, we as a retailer perhaps weren't dealing with them in such a big way in the first instance, and since they went more, if you like, mass market via the internet and such like, we've got no interest in going back and revisiting them again, because during that same period, the other relationships that we've built up have been further cemented on the original foundations, and they've continued to look after us. Now, in our particular case, it's BSH, and obviously in the last 12 months or so, they haven't exactly done a sterling job of performing and getting this new product launch out. But that said, you're going to be hard pressed to find a brand, if you like, that is going to look after its higher echelon retailers better as a direct account. And it's that kind of relationship with direct supplies rather than going through distribution. I mean, Malcolm might well agree or disagree, because obviously he's a distributor. Certainly, we need to make margin, and we need to find. Yeah, we need to make. We need to work with suppliers that give us margin, that allow us to sell competitively, offer the service that as a kitchen retailer we want to offer, which is look at this beautiful oven here, or this one there, or that one there, this hob, that hob, this cooker hood. Sell the virtue, sell the benefits, sell the features, and at the end of it, take the order. Not have the client on Calcu checking for a price while they're in the showroom and placing the order before they've walked out the door with appliances online. Now, if we can't supply product that makes us margin, we don't want to supply it. I'm nobody's idiot and nobody's fool.
Paul, what about you? Because effectively, as the guy who runs Ripples, as opposed to being a franchisee, you're the guy who negotiates with the suppliers here to get the best deal for your franchisee. So, what do you think? What is that relationship?
It's certainly a different relationship to I think that maybe others may have, in that we tend not to change our suppliers very often, and for good or bad, we're kind of visiting old friends here today in many ways, and I think as a result we do give them a very hard time as well about the things that we think that we should do. And I can remember back when, it's about 17, 18 years ago, one of my first conversations with the sales director for, I won't say who, but basically he said to me, He said to me at the end of the meeting, the biggest problem we've got is that we don't have enough good customers for our product in this country, people who understand it. And I said, well, our biggest problem is we don't have enough good suppliers out there who actually understand us and can help us with our objectives. And I think there's more suppliers out there today that do understand us and make an effort to understand us, but it's still not as many as there should be. And I think that we're still educating them, and equally they're still educating us. And I think both are getting better at that overall.
I mean, I'm coming to you last, Malcolm, because you're obviously the supplier in here. But what do you think, Derek? Is there an obligation for suppliers to support small retailers, or is it literally, look, if we both make money, great, and if we don't, let's not bother?
No, I think there's an obligation to support. We found during the recession that, I've said in one of the articles, it was akin to swimming in a stagnant pool full of piranhas, and that included the suppliers as well. And some of our suppliers made pretty desperate decisions during the recession, and like Trevor said, you were cast aside a little bit as they were determined to retain their presence. But we've very much go in a partnership approach with good suppliers, and I'm pretty proud to say that, taking aside my main European, German and Swiss suppliers, we're doing more and more with British manufacturers. So in my contracts business, probably 50% of my total purchase is with British manufacturers. I've half the amount of suppliers we deal with, because I went on the basis that we would do more business with them, they would give us more back. Very simple, but that's worked very well for us.
The suppliers are going down that route too, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can service less retailers but get more out of them.
Absolutely.
by having that relationship.
And I think that's the future.
Desperate decisions were made, Malcolm. That's what Derek has said.
Well, it's not only desperate decisions, it's a massive restructuring, change of ownership, groups have merged and consolidated, the role of distribution has changed. If you go back 10 years, Distributors went round, chose whichever brands they liked and distributed it. Now manufacturers select a small number of distributors who have to perform a function. You can't be a distributor unless you stock it anymore. For many years, you didn't have to stock it. You didn't have to do the delivery. You could get the manufacturer to do it for you. So the world has changed, but the brands have changed as well. As I say, they've consolidated and they've now got brand strategies with usually 3 or 4 brands, one at the top, one in the middle. They've also changed the offering to different channels. Everyone's recognised the internet's here to stay, but it's not the biggest part of the appliance industry, and it's unlikely, certainly for built-in, that it ever will be. More's always going to be sold through shops. So there's got to be ways to deal with that, and things like offering different products with more features, or offering an enhanced margin where you're a displaying outlet, or there's all sorts of things happened over the last 5 years to change the environment. So it's, there has been changes, and some of it has caught the manufacturers off guard and the retailers, but it's moving with the times.
And everyone's making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Why would they know more than the other? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about with the internet here, so let's go into that a little bit, because it's such a contentious thing even now. I mean, you've written about it recently, about some of the stuff that's coming out of Germany. But we must have moved the argument on somewhere, mustn't we? Because I've been talking about the internet for 10 years, and the argument must have progressed somewhere. What's the status of it now? It must have improved or otherwise somewhere along the line, Trevor, mustn't it?
Well, yes, it has, but it really was a big floundering exercise of, oh no, we're in a recession, the world as we know it's ended, retailers are going bust, suppliers are going bust, and we've got this wonderful new method of selling product online. And it was like a perfect storm. And while it was going on, the manufacturers were benefiting to the extent that they were being able to continue getting product out the door. But the price they were paying for it was they were losing bricks and mortar retailers. Now, that's big boys as well as independents. As was only written by yourself last month. You look at the list of the carnage of the big names that have bitten the dust in the last 10 years, and the volume that these people were doing, both white goods and furniture-wise, it's massive. So that's a big hole that's had to be filled somewhere. And I think, to a certain extent, what's happened is that those really big, large national boys, where they've disappeared, they've been absorbed by the internet traders. And the better independent retailers have continued to sort of do all right. But it's finding the right partners, and the right suppliers, and the ones that are looking after you, without taking the mickey. And some still want to take the mickey a little bit.
But the legalities, though, of what suppliers can and can't, you would not want your supplier to tell you what price to sell at.
No.
And equally, they can't tell the internet guys that either. They legally they can't tell them that. So the idea that suppliers can just not deal with that internet guy, it's not that clear cut, is it? I mean, you Paul, you've sorry, Mark, go on.
They don't need to do that anymore because the internet has developed. It's not like it was 10 years ago. It's not all cowboys working from bedrooms. These companies have got high overheads and are big businesses with warehouses, with infrastructure, with transport. They can't undercut bricks and mortar retailers. That's changed. The world is not what it was. The consumer won't buy from brands they don't recognise. It's John Lewis's they buy from online. It's big brands. So we haven't got what we had even 5 years ago.
But it's still not a level playing field, though, Paul, is it?
No, and
particularly when you talk about what's happening in Europe.
In your question, it did get better. I think most, if not all, actually, of our regular suppliers worked really hard to choose who they were working with, and to do their best to resolve it as an issue. And they struggled with the legalities, what to say, how to deal with it, but they wanted to solve it as a problem, not pretend it wasn't there, but actually develop the independent business because it's very good for them. But I think the internet's been extremely good to our business. We use it in the way everybody else does. We've had 10,000 hits on our webpage last month, and we love everyone. But the reality is that they can choose what price they sell their goods at, and they can choose which customers that they choose to work with and for what reasons. And I think that the issue of late, really, as I wrote about, is that we've got different levels across different countries now, and something is literally significantly cheaper in Poland than it is in this country. And that's fine, actually. It's fine because I think the real customers will buy in the showroom, and I think that we all accept that because it's a complicated product, but it doesn't help the price that you sell it at in your showroom. And I don't think suppliers know what to do about it, in all honesty. I think they want a solution, but they don't actually know what it is because it's kicked them up the backside.
And of course, there's a couple of suppliers have fallen foul of trying to control internet pricing, haven't they? there's the Competition and Markets Authority investigation going on just for that, for trying to
I think, Andrew, when
do what every bricks and mortar retailer wants them to do.
I think the issue really is that there's so much money to be made selling goods online, and we all love to pretend that there isn't, but there is. And I think Victoria Plumb are doing about £80 million now. They're not here, but that's a massive amount of business. So it's naive to think someone wouldn't want to try and take that business from them or to develop it. And we've got to compete with that, but of course we've therefore got to compete with it in a very different way.
Derek, what's your take on this? Is it just one of those insurmountable problems, or is it slowly progressing and getting better?
It's insurmountable if no one does anything about it. I like Paul. I felt, is it not working? Is that better? Like Paul, I agree that for a while it looked as though it was getting better, and I thought things were polarising quite nicely, so that in the UK most of the bigger new online companies were selling unbranded goods, which let branded type companies like ours concentrate on those brands, and it was a nice polarity. But with the advent of the German wholesalers entering the market, it isn't a level playing field. So no one wants price fixing, but when it's not a level playing field, it makes it virtually impossible to compete against that. And we had this conversation last week at a conference we were at. That's a serious problem, and until there's a pan-European approach to pricing on these brands, we're not going to get anywhere. And as Paul's excellent article the other month said, what do you want? Do we want Reuterbad to open up in an out-of-town warehouse all over the UK and tear us apart? Because if there's not pan-European pricing in the next few years, that is going to happen, I'm afraid. So.
I mean, it's the global nature of the internet is actually it's exposed an awful lot of inconsistencies across the market very brutally in some ways. But I think safely say that we fixed it now by having this conversation, so it's all fine from now on. I want to talk a little bit about retail in general, and literally where you think the high street is going, and what consumers want and look for when they come to retailers like you guys, and obviously the retailers that you supply, Malcolm. Where's it going to go? Is it all about massive superstores out of town? Is the high street dead? What do you think, Trevor? You're expanding and growing.
Well, I noted when I did my article in France about the French market, I really picked up on the franchise model as being the way the European manufacturers seem to be going to start controlling and having some influence over the way their product is displayed, sold through the markets in Central Europe, and that was something that wasn't really particularly prevalent in the UK until relatively recently. In Toto being the obvious big one, and of course literally within the last 12 months we're hearing all sorts of names that are coming up with the franchise model. So Nobilia with Kutchen House, Mabalpa, Cuisine Schmidt, Alno expanding with Alno themselves and with in Toto. And without a doubt, I do feel that in terms of large multi-million mega manufacturers controlling their route to market and having some influence and say over how the product is presented to their public, the way to achieve that is through the franchise model. Now, obviously, as an independent who chooses on a whim who I deal with, that's not necessarily good for me, unless one of them comes along and makes me an offer I can't refuse, obviously, which if anybody wants to. Yeah. But there's still got to be a space for independent retail as well, where there's a much broader freedom of choice and freedom of expression allowed.
But those big manufacturers, they would probably favour much bigger stores, wouldn't they? With a much bigger space.
Not necessarily.
Really?
Not really. No, I mean 4,000 or 5,000 square foot would be more than ample, and certainly on the continent, that's the model size that I've seen. Which, in fairness, is the size of my showroom in Rugby. It's a nice size, but it's not excessively huge. It's not a superstore. It's just plenty big enough. And I think that kind of size, 3,500 to 5,000 square foot for franchise models, would work very well.
I mean, speaking of franchise,
it's nicely set up, there, isn't it? Really?
It was very nicely set up. I mean, I think of Ripples as being quite a high street location, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a big out of town guys. What's your take on that? Is that kind of model going to increase? I mean, you're not a branded franchise model.
Yeah.
It's not a Hansgrohe store or whatever, but no one else really does a bathroom retail franchise that way, as we've talked about with kitchens?
Yeah, I think that our focus is to I guess to focus exclusively on the customer, the consumer. We're not like Derek doing a lot of contract work generally. So we try to be where they would want to visit our store and try and have a store that they would want to visit. And no different to these retail parks. People go there because it's actually just a better place to go, not because it's easier than the high street. There's more to do. You can eat there. There's different stores. It's more convenient. So I think that because we've never been on the high street, we're not necessarily affected by that. But I think independents generally are affected. They're not on the high street for that reason. But equally, I think if you make your store an enjoyable place to go and entertain people and actually give them a reason why they should go, then I don't think that you will suffer any more than any good retailer would do. I think ultimately, if you don't evolve, you die. It's as simple as that. And if you stop focusing on the customer, you die. But it's a bit like this show. It was 2 years ago. It was awful, and everybody told you. And it's a brilliant show at the moment, compared to that. And it's because everyone's making an effort. And it's got to be. If you keep doing that, I think people will find you. It's as simple as that.
And Malcolm, you go to an awful lot of retailers. What's your view of which model works the best?
Well, I think you have to split up the kitchen market. You've got 80% of it, which is going to be discount retailers and always will be. It'll be the IKEAs, the B&Qs. That other 20%, as far as the consumer's concerned, a franchisee is just an independent because it's a relatively small store, proprietor driven. So that part of the market, there'll be a bit of movement as to how many are actually independents and how many are 50% independent. But it's a pretty secure bit of the market that's held its own against the rest of the market for the last 20 years.
Yep.
No matter who's tried to attack it, from the old MFI days to the IKEA days, no one's made any inroads into it. Even Ren aren't really in that part of the market. They're in this other massive...
Yeah,
if a consumer wants a quality service and they want a personal service, they're going to go to a kitchen studio, and that's going to continue. It's a shopping experience.
Derek, what do you think? You need a location that can appeal as much to your contract customers as your retail customers. So what's your view of how that retail model is going to go forward?
Well, I think that, to me, the traditional high street looks as if it's in a life support machine. I took my son to cinema the other night in a out-of-town complex that had every shop in the world and every restaurant in the world and skiing, indoor skiing and cinemas. And you could see his generation thinking, this is where we would much prefer to go. Yeah. And I think there's still a big future for retailing. People like the retail experience. And I interestingly heard, along with Paul at a conference last week, that John Lewis is now 40% of their group sales are done online. John Lewis is. And they expect it to be more than half in 4 years' time. So there's obviously an ever-changing model, but as far as showrooms and shops go, to me it's out-of-town malls seems to be much more prevalent than high streets. In Scotland there's a lot of very dead high streets, and it doesn't look as if there's any chance of them coming back.
I think
it's interesting in some other industries. Sorry, Malcolm.
Just very quickly about that. When you look at how much business is done from the internet, if you take John Lewis as an example, is it an internet sale if you investigate it first but go and pick it up in the store and while you're there you buy other stuff? Or is that a store sale? Because a lot of the numbers, well, it isn't, because you've gone in store. So a lot of the numbers, it's very difficult now to gauge how much business is actually internet and how much is in store. Because if you click and collect, you're going to the store. So therefore you're likely to buy something else while you're there, or even if you don't buy something else, you're using the bricks and mortar.
Yep.
So you need a store, which is exactly the reason why Argos and Sainsbury's are such a perfect match, because consumers actually want to go to a store to pick up stuff. So you can't divorce. You can no longer say someone is either internet or they're in store. Really, all businesses will eventually be a store with an internet site.
My favourite's not this industry at all, but it's Doddle. Have you seen Doddle? They have a high street shop where you can get your internet purchases delivered to. They have a changing room inside the shop. You can try the clothes on that you've ordered off online, try them on, and then they'll send them back for you. It's an online shopping shop that you go and visit. And they just think, why didn't you just go to the shop and buy it in the first place, for God's sake? It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a
That's the internet growing up and learning how to become a mature, responsible adult.
Yeah.
It's been a prepubescent child for the last 10 years. It's starting to grow up now.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll come to the end of this now, but I want to very quickly go down the line here and just see if there's 3 things that you said all retailers need to put at the top of their list. I've pre-warned you about this. We're going to see. I'm going to see how much of them match. So I'm going to start with you because you've got your piece of paper out, Trevor. So what are those 3 things every retailer should have at the top of their list?
Well, I asked the staff before I left this morning at 8:30, and top of the list was smile more.
Well, yes.
So, no, smile at your customers. A happy customer, it buys from happy suppliers. So if you smile more at your customers and allow them to enjoy the experience.
These are the customers that are all liars, cheats and bastards, yeah?
Those are the ones, yeah, thank you very much. I knew that would be snuck in somewhere, yeah. But yeah, you know, be more proactive and be less disingenuous. Get close up to your customers and enjoy their company and enjoy the experience with them. Smile more. Why not?
What's number 2?
Communication.
Yeah.
Communicating with suppliers and suppliers communicating with you. Getting the message right, making sure that what we get told actually is what happens, and vice versa. We can, if we get genuine information from our suppliers, we can pass genuine information on to our clients, and then everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet.
Okay, quickly, what's number 3?
Recruitment. This industry is blossoming again now, and after many years of recession, we've had a lot of people that have come out of the industry, both trade skills people on the installation side and designers as well. And I think moving forward, being able to find good staff that have got the right background is going to be key to growing businesses.
Okay, Paul, what about you? 1, 2, 3.
Great showroom. Make sure you've got a fantastic showroom. Put the best staff that you possibly can in there and make them better, and then tell the world about both.
Oh, brief, I like that.
Get that nice and simple.
Malcolm, what about you?
Yeah, I'd almost reverse it and say, if you look at somebody like B&Q and what they do wrong, that's what we should be doing right. You go in there, there's doors missing from displays, it's unclean, it's untidy, there's no current brochures, half the products are out of date and discontinued, and there's no staff. Get those bits right, and the rest is...
So, Derek?
My 3 things are the same as they are every year, to be honest. Nothing different this year. Stick to what you're good at, but be really, really good at it. Be better than your competitors. Very important in a growing market, control the overheads still and don't spend all the profits like everybody did the last time.
Yeah.
And value supplier relationships and really nurture them for the benefit of both businesses.
Yeah.
So that was what I thought.
And isn't that interesting that the word internet wasn't used in a single one of them? Isn't that interesting? Right, thank you very much, gents. The clock has beaten us, I'm afraid, but thank you, Trevor, Paul, Malcolm and Derek. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.